Welcome to the Unitarian Christian Alliance podcast, episode 36, the first UCA Conference, with guest Stacey Berger. I'm your host and puppeteer, Mark Kane. The first UCA Conference is in the books, and Amanda Dunn from episode 33 and 34 gets the first word. She wrote, "All the hugs, the, quote, feels like family hugs, were my favorite part. Just like Mark Kane promised, it was so fun and fulfilling to be there with you all. So many conversations left to be had, which is exactly why, eventually, we are really going to need eternity. Can't wait for the next opportunity to get together." Thanks, Amanda. There was a lot of planning to get ready for the conference. One of the most important steps, obviously, was to mentally prepare for meeting friends, old and new, like how Josiah Wright, episode 20, prepped his daughter, Evelyn.
Tomorrow we're going to see Stacey. And John. And Heidi. And Mark Kane. Mark. And Dale Tuggy. Dale. And Brandon. Nathan. Okay.
Oh, that is priceless. If you want to jump back 45 seconds and listen again, go right ahead. I'll just wait right here for you. Okay. Stacey Berger helped us organize this event, and today I'm going to be discussing the conference and a little bit about her. But first, a portion of my opening remarks from the beginning of the conference. I'm thrilled to be here, but there's really nothing that special about this event. That is, the event itself. By the time this is over, you can probably easily make a list of things that you would have done differently. And we may have made decisions this year that we change and don't do again next year. But you know what? It's happening. And you're here. What makes this event so remarkable is not the admission price, the professional videos that will result, the food, or the centerpieces and decorations. Though if you see Brandon Wright, give her some love. They're beautiful. It's not all those things that make this so amazing. It's you. It's your willingness to stand against traditions for the sake of truth and despite the costs that it might entail. It's your writing. It's your videos. It's your podcasts. It's your patience and perseverance with others. Your unique circumstances where you have fit your life in and alongside the lives of others. It's your love, it's your hope, and it's your joy. You are making the real difference. This event is simply amazing because it's chock full of 140 of you. I joined the UCA team because I believe that, yes, reaching out more broadly would serve a purpose, and it has. It has succeeded in connecting people who have been pushed out of their former life by their Christian friends and family. I hear from these people through the podcast, and it is working. That's my favorite part. Then it's helping encourage a belief in a Messiah that can actually be understood, who can be loved and followed as our true example. The UCA is doing these things in its own unique ways. But it isn't the UCA alone. We are just made up of many voices and many efforts. And this is where this kind of alliance can really turn the tide. I believe that our collective efforts can create new kinds of waves, bigger and stronger, that batter down the bulwark of confusing tradition. I believe that together we will find new, powerful, maybe humorous ways to poke the massive Orthodox bear with truth and maybe, hopefully, wake it up. I think it's happening, and that one day the statistics will show that that massive shift started at the beginning of the 2020s. That shift toward a simpler and more authentic apostolic faith. Of course, if I'm right, Orthodox Christians will declare the great apostasy has begun, and that it's probably a sign of the end times. So, there you go. We are made up of many groups, each with great resources, great people, and fantastic ministries. And I hope you get to meet some of the ones that are along the back this week. Please do. If you know what a superwave is, it's that thing in the ocean when multiple waves just happen to come together at the right time, and the result is absolutely massive. I think this is what could be happening right here. I believe that we are creating a super wave of scriptural truth. I thank you for joining me in this amazing effort. Thank you.
What followed over the weekend were several deep and well-done presentations on theological topics and one on Unitarian history. The conference consisted of these presentations and of spending time together between sessions and during meals. I had my recording equipment with me and thought about capturing some live content, some impromptu discussions, but I was enjoying visiting so much I just couldn't bring myself to interrupt the conversation and introduce lapel mics and such. Nah. Besides, the room was so noisy, with dozens of conversations spread across the many tables. I suspect some new plans and ideas got hatched that weekend, and I can't wait to find out what they were. And now, my talk with Stacey. I wanted to interview you because I felt for all the people who might have thought, hey, I want to talk to Stacey, and then you were busy helping run the whole event. So this is our chance to make up for that.
Yes, it was really exciting how many people were there. And on one hand, I got to see so many people and people that I've met before and a ton of people that I haven't met. But because there were so many people there and I was busy, I didn't get to meet a bunch of people that I wanted to. So
yeah. So what was the final number of the attendees?
I believe it was 147, and then we had a few toddlers, so we're saying 150 people showed up.
Let's count the toddlers.
Yeah, toddlers count.
Right.
Yeah, that was really exciting, especially since about a month before we had, I think, 80 signed up. And so we had a lot of people kind of at the last get really excited, get their plans worked out so that they could join us.
Yeah, they were from all over the country. We had people from California,
Wyoming, Idaho, Utah.
Yeah. And so many of them you either heard about or maybe you saw them on Facebook, and then you actually got to see them. And that was cool.
And that's what made it so special, is that we all got to come together, get to know each other at a little bit deeper level and see that we all really do share a really awesome belief.
So since this is the chance to discover who this Stacey was that we didn't get to talk to, why don't we go through that story? Who is Stacey Berger?
Well, once upon a time, I was born.
Ooh.
It's a great story. My journey to Unitarianism and to Christianity in general is really interesting. I was not raised in a Christian household. And in my early 20s, I had someone pose a question to me that I still carry with me today. And the question was, if everything you thought you knew was wrong, would you want to know?
Ooh.
And that really got me thinking. And I decided, yes, I do want to know if I'm wrong. So that led me to learn about God, buy a Bible, read it, and start asking questions. And then, of course, because most of the churches are Trinitarian, that's the road I ended down. And I just believed people as they were telling me things because I hadn't read through the whole Bible yet. And it's, kind of a complex book. Like I've said to people, I said, I had this board in my mind of sticky notes, of little Post-its of, this doesn't make sense what I'm being told. So I'm just going to put a pin in it and I'll come back to it as I learn more.
That's cool. So this whole experience then, your church experience, this was in Idaho.
Yes. So I lived in Idaho. I was going to a church there and I met this gal at a Bible study, and she was questioning things and had a lot of information to share. And it really shocked me because I had never really experienced that before. Most people just kind of went along with whatever was said. But the information she shared, she had scripture to back it up and a lot of intelligence behind what she was saying. And so she and I became friends because I wanted to know, hey, where are you getting this information? What's your history? What's your background? And that started us down a whole nother path.
But at this point, had she explored or had she talked about the Trinity with you yet?
No, we had not talked about that. And what's interesting is I actually got involved with the 20s and 30s conference that Allegiance to the King puts on through her. So it was about 4 years ago, she invited me to this conference. And And I said, well, that's nice. We're in Idaho. How am I going to make it to Kentucky? I'm a single mom of a daughter and working full time. And she goes, well, if money weren't an issue, would you want to go? I'm like, yes, of course I'd want to go. This would be amazing. And it blew my mind. Within 2 weeks, people had bought a plane ticket for me and arranged everything for me to go to this conference.
Wow.
What was so fascinating is I met a bunch of people that loved God and were all about studying scripture and finding truth. And it was when I first met Dale Tuggy and Keegan Chandler and Sean Finnegan, Jerry Werewolf, John Truitt, and they were all sitting around having these discussions that just, oh my gosh, I felt like a fly on a wall watching just this amazing fireworks show because they all had so much information to share and so much knowledge in scripture, and yet they were all getting along, even though they didn't all agree. And that to me was just such an amazing example of God and wanting to share and really wanting to learn truth. It wasn't about arguing. It was about sharing knowledge. They all had different perspectives and different things they were coming from and different books they had read. I was just so excited to meet a bunch of people who just wanted to seek truth and follow God.
Okay. So let me just get this straight. You essentially went into a den of Unitarianism. Did you get through the whole weekend then? Did it come up during the week?
Not that I noticed, which, I think back now, I'm like, did I miss something? But no, the conference that weekend was on apologetics.
Okay.
It wasn't a major topic. I think we were talking about other things. And I got home from the conference and just was reeling and just my whole world changed to see such love and caring and giving with all of these people, the people who helped get me there, and then all the speakers, and then all of the other just attendees that I met. It was this group of people that I just went, wow, these are my people. I need to be around them more. I need to learn more.
Yeah.
It was after I got home talking to my original friend. I think it was about 6 months later. She's like, so we're Unitarians, right? I'm like, what's that? It was actually fascinating because I had never heard anything else. That was one of those sticky notes that I just was like, I don't fully understand how this works. I'm reading things that don't support this, but these pastors must know more than me, right?
Right.
So for her to say that to me, in a cartoon when everything stops and you turn and look, I was like, whoa, back the train up. And she explained it to me. And I could just rip that sticky note off that bulletin board like, whew, question answered. Sweet, I am on this Unitarian train.
Oh, man. So somehow then you moved to Tennessee. How did that unfold?
So went to the 20s and 30s conference, like I said, and it changed my life. So that was in June. That November, I took my daughter Heidi to visit the Truitts in Kentucky and some of our other friends, and we just had a week of fellowship. Heidi fell in love with the area. I'm like, oh, these are my family members. While we were there, we went to Higher Ground Church in White House, Tennessee, really close to where the conference was. And what was so interesting is while we were there, God had said to me, he goes, this is going to be your home church. And I laughed, as sometimes we do at God.
Yes.
Well, sure enough, about a year and a half later, I went to the 20s and 30s conference again. Still loved the area, still loved all the people. And it was one of those, I would rather be around all these people full time and go visit my family than be around my family full time and visit all these people.
Wow.
So then I went to Converge and came to White House after Converge with the Gills. They let me hang out in their car and drive home with them.
Oh, Dan and Sharon.
Dan and Sharon Gill. Yep, I got to stay at the Gill B&B because they're so gracious. And spent about 3 days touring around White House and just to see, is this somewhere I could live? What would it look like to move here? And before the 3 days was up, I was shopping moving companies.
And that's fast.
Yeah, and then by the following November, I was officially a Tennessee resident. It was really amazing how God worked it all out. I didn't think it would ever be possible.
Yeah. Well, you didn't just end up as a Tennessee resident, because I went to the 20s and 30s conference this year, and you were helping to run it. You dove right in. It wasn't just, now I'm here. It's, I'm here and I'm engaged.
Yes. So over the 2.5 years, I had a lot of people really helping me out. It was so amazing to see so many people give to me. And moving here, I just was so excited. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to be able to give. I'm going to have time. I'm going to be closer to everything. And so I was asked to help with the 20s and 30s conference. I'm like, ooh, yes. And I live close and I can bring extra air mattresses. And I mean, just little details. I was just so excited to help.
Yeah, it was great because I got to go. We talked about it with Kenny Willenberg, who helped plan it as well. And that was a previous episode. I think that was the experience that helped trigger the question that we gave to you I think it was about 3 months ago.
Yeah, about 3 months ago.
It was, can you help us?
Well, yes. The UCA board called me and said, we are humble men and we know we need some help. And I said, absolutely, I'm in.
Yeah. As it approached and we tried to organize things, I mean, we're all working. Dale and Keegan are on the publishing committee. We wanted to have the Emlyn book done to hand out at the conference. So there's just a lot of pressure to get a lot of things done. I think it kind of dawned on us that if we don't have help, there may be some serious failures like, oh, lunch. So your help was invaluable.
Thank you. You guys made some amazing decisions to really create a fabulous conference, but definitely needing some help and the small details. So I'm really glad I was there to be able to fill in that gap.
Yeah. To talk just a little bit about the conference, because some people didn't make it. The room was labeled as being able to hold about 200 some people, but we used the round tables so that we could eat in the room and then just do the presentations. And it felt just the right size for the number of people that were there. How did you plan that so well, Stacey?
I actually had a guy come up to me at the conference and go, how did you pick such a perfect venue? You want one where you're not crowded, but it's just small enough where it feels full and you have the right number of people. And frankly, we picked a venue and we didn't know if we were going to have 30 people show up or 150 people show up. And it really turned out to be the perfect venue because at 150, we're good. I mean, we probably could have fit a few more, but we had sponsor tables in the main room as well. So the sponsor tables didn't have to be off in a separate room, people hanging out by themselves.
Yeah.
It made it so it was the perfect size. Everybody had room. You could walk between tables, but it was a full room. And the energy from that and the excitement of, oh my gosh, look how many Unitarians are here and from all different walks here supporting each other and looking towards a common goal.
Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to get a picture of the room full of people up on the website pretty soon, if it's not already there by the time we released. But then you can see, oh yeah, the whole floor covered with people. It was great.
And there were even, there were wives there were single women, there were, older people, younger people, there were little kids that came, so families. And that was one of the things that I was really excited about is to see all the different ages. It wasn't just one age group or one typical group of people, which really is what we need. If the Unitarian movement is going to really spread and hold together and be there, having all ages, people in all walks of life is so crucial. And it was really neat to see that.
Yeah. The fact that quite a few people came because of this podcast and because they knew people and they wanted to meet people. Well, some of those people who came, they weren't familiar with or hadn't sat through theological conferences before. And it was different for them. But what I'm excited about is I've already sent out a survey to the people who had attended, and I'm getting some feedback already, some great ideas. It's exciting to know this was just step one. All we did was just crack open the box, and we're still rummaging around for all the delightful things that are inside.
Yeah. The hardest part is doing something for the first time. So putting on this conference for the first time was really quite the undertaking. And from there, now we can tweak and adjust and shift. But sometimes you just have to do something first, just get it out there. Yeah. And I think a lot of people really appreciated the really deep theological discussions that were going on. The talks were just really in depth. Having the papers to go along with them was really nice so we could go back and continue to study what was talked about. But having the schedule so there was time to talk between each session. We had long lunch breaks. We had another encouragement session. And that made it so people, even if they weren't into the really deep, heavy theology that was going on, they were still getting that fellowship and getting to meet people and connect. Oh my gosh, look, we're not alone. There's all these people. And
Yeah.
hey, there's a family with kids too. And there's a guy who's, got gray hair like me. There's a whole group.
Yeah, yeah. There was enough people there that you could talk to new folks between every session, at every meal, and you still wouldn't have met them all.
Yeah. And that to me is just so exciting, especially for a first year event.
Yeah. So with the feedback that we're getting, my hope is that by next year, we can expand it a bit to accommodate more people and,
This was planned 2 years ago, essentially. And the UCA was smaller then. It was before the podcast. And so as the UCA has grown and developed and really added more facets to it, the conference will tweak and change as well.
Yeah. I think my favorite part of the whole conference was that the tags had names on both sides of them.
Well, okay. So you did mention that when we were talking name tags, Mark Kane said, Stacey, there has to be names on both sides or I'm going to go around and attack everybody with a Sharpie and put a name on both sides. And I believed him. So I made sure there were names on both sides.
Yes, right. Because how frustrating is it when you walk up to somebody for the first time ever and there's a 50% chance that you're going to feel the temptation to reach for their stomach? That's awkward. Very awkward. Thank you, Stacey, for double-sided name tags.
You're welcome. One of the awkward things that was avoided at this conference.
Yes. Well, I had been waiting to talk with you for months. I think back when Sean Finnegan interviewed me, I've discussed a little bit about what Converge was in previous podcasts, but it was an event sort of like the UCA Conference, except a family event. There were nurseries, music, and sound, and it was a serious undertaking. It was in Northeast Ohio. It was in 2019, August. And I got to help with that. It was at that event that I saw the light, as you might say. And it was you, Stacey.
Aw.
It was the last meal, Sunday afternoon. People were getting ready to go. And you walked up to me and said, thank you for what you had done. And then you said, as you held my hand, these are my people. And it clicked in my head. People like Stacey all over the planet who are just isolated. That's when I saw I could do this and I could be a part of something that's bigger than just my little local church. It's global. Thank you for that.
Well, my pleasure. It really was life-changing for me. I was so blessed that Allegiance to the King had virtual fellowships so that I wasn't totally isolated. I was able to connect with other Unitarians and, we could pray for each other. But then to actually meet people in person, that was what was so awesome about Converge is I got to see more than just the face of people. And, really from all these different groups that I had heard about, participated in, whatever, we all got to come together and to be a part of it just filled my heart and soul more than it had in so long. Yeah. I just went, I need this. I need this all the time. And so once again, when you guys asked me to help out with the UCA conference, like, yes, I would love to. When you're around people who encourage you and you're there for each other and are really trying to walk out biblical life, but also question and seek truth, to be around others that want to seek truth, it's so inspiring every day, and it can really just change who you are.
Yes. Well, we are thankful that you said yes and helped us out because it made for a wonderful event that flowed smoothly.
Well, I had a blast.
As I'd said, the future is unknown. So just to put the idea in people's head, I want people thinking we might be able to have a UCA conference in Europe someday, or maybe on the West Coast, or Australia. Who knows? I want us all to be thinking bigger, thinking about events which are deliberately structured for the purpose of bringing multiple people together to make those connections, to create a stronger and more powerful environment from which the truth of the one God will just permeate all of society.
I think that's crucial. And it takes people stepping up going, hey, I think we could put on an event here. And it doesn't have to be huge. It can be small or it can be big. But the more we have around and in different countries around the world, the better. And if you don't know how to start, reach out. There's plenty of us who have put on planned an event. Why reinvent the wheel when you can just ask and get help and ideas? And it would make it a lot easier. It really is life-changing when people get to go to an event in person.
Yeah, and we talked about that very thing in episode 17. It's called Fellowship Effectively, Less Frequently. That was the one where I had Kenny Willenberg on. I hope people can see the breadth of possibilities can go from just a barbecue in the afternoon on a weekend all the way to a multiple-day conference.
I encourage anyone having an idea of getting people together to just do it. There's no wrong way to do it. Just getting people together, it usually morphs into something amazing. Sure, you can always do better and change and tweak and improve, but something is better than nothing for sure.
Yes, indeed it is. Hey, one of the volunteers that was at the event was your daughter, and she was fantastic. Is she anywhere within earshot?
She is. Hey, Heidi, come here for a second.
Heidi, I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciated the care and the attention you gave to all the kids. And I know that the parents who came, it meant the world to them. Thank you very much.
No problem. It was absolutely so much fun. I was so happy and thankful that I got to help a bunch of parents out. It was awesome.
She did have a blast, though, and I was so proud of her for making it through all 3 days.
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome. She's only 12, so some people were caught off guard and kept asking her where her husband was while she was carrying around babies. I'm like, she's 12?
Oh, no. Well, it was great, and so many people volunteered their time. A lot of folks from the White House Church.
I am grateful for all the volunteers, and there was quite a few of them that did more than they had signed up to do, and I am so appreciative of them sticking it out the whole weekend. It really came together pretty flawlessly, which for a first-time event is pretty exciting because usually there's something that goes wrong, but everything really worked out smoothly.
Stacey, I look forward to the next time we meet again. Once again, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. I was so grateful to be a part of the UCA Conference. I'm happy to do it again.
Perfect. We have gotten a lot of questions about the videos. Matthew Elton, the owner of Spark and Foster Films, recorded the presentations and is editing them now. We will release them on a steady schedule, not all at once. And we'll announce each video release on the UCA website blog. And if you are a member, you get those posts as emails. So sign up to the Unitarian Christian Alliance website, get yourself in the directory, and then you won't miss a thing. Well, you can miss emails if the spam filter catches them. You know, if you've been a member and you haven't seen emails coming through, do check your spam. We posted one just last week on the 22nd of October with some pictures in it from the conference. If you didn't see it, go into your spam and maybe find it. Then mark it as not spam. So sign up on UnitarianChristianAlliance.org. While you are there, check out the map. Oh yeah, check out the map. I got a letter from Joanna in Arizona. Hi, Mark. I'm just writing to say that I've been thoroughly enjoying your podcast. My daughter, 21 years old, introduced the Unitarian theology to me about a year ago. I had a few questions, but for the most part, it just made sense. I reread the Gospels, Acts, and Revelation, and I could easily see how what she was telling me was correct. As someone who was brought up as a oneness Pentecostal in the United Pentecostal Church, it was never hard for me to dismiss the doctrine of the Trinity. But I wasn't fully convinced the oneness doctrine was correct either. Anyway, all of that to say, I have been listening to your podcast since the beginning. There have been so many moments when I could identify with many of your guests in various ways, from Hildy Chandler to Dan Gill to John Lawson, and most recently Amanda Dunn. So many moments when I'm listening at work with tears in my eyes or chuckling to myself. As you already know, your podcast isn't for everyone. Smiles. But it has certainly been a blessing to me. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Keep up the good work. Joanna Walker in Arizona. Thank you, Johanna. Great to hear from you. The email address is podcast@UnitarianChristianAlliance.org. I'd love to hear from you, too. Alternatively, and preferably, since I am an audio geek, you can record yourself saying a few words. There's a link in the show notes and on the podcast website, podcast.UnitarianChristianAlliance.org. You can even record yourself on your device and just email that file to me. The first book has recently been published by Theophilus Press, the publishing arm of the UCA. We gave away several at the conference via raffle and a trivia game. It's called, and allow me a moment to take a deep breath, An Humble Inquiry into the Scripture Account of Jesus Christ, a Short Argument Concerning His Deity and Glory According to the Gospel by Thomas Emlyn. Here's what I love about this. Emlyn wrote it in 1702. This is history. But unlike many writings that you find, and maybe struggle with, from the 1700s, this has been given some modern love. Dale Tuggy and Keegan Chandler spent a lot of hours modernizing this work. And Keegan wrote what I wanted to call an historical introduction, but they didn't use that. It's just called the introduction. But it's really good. For those who share Emlyn's beliefs, his faithfulness to truth is inspirational. For those who stand against his views, it's a humbling tale of how religion and power can really mess things up. Here's Keegan's opening paragraph from the introduction of An Humble Inquiry. I wrote my humble inquiry, said English theologian and preacher Thomas Emlyn, as one grieved in spirit and afflicted, forsaken by my people and my friends, and abandoned to the accusations, anger, and contempt of all around me, cast out as a despised and broken vessel. While Emlyn was convinced that he had only been maintaining the cause of the God of gods and the truth of Jesus his Son, he found himself labeled a heretic by his fellow ministers and, quote, numbered among the vilest transgressors and blasphemers, end quote. Emlyn's 1702 publication of An Humble Inquiry, a spirited defense of Unitarian theology, ultimately led to more than the destruction of his reputation. In the eyes of the English government, his opinions about God and Jesus were blasphemous and a danger to society. After an unfair trial, Emlyn's wealth was confiscated, and he was thrown into prison like a common criminal. In our own time, it may be difficult to imagine how any book of Christian theology, even decidedly unorthodox theology, could cause its authors so much financial, legal, and bodily suffering. Yet Emlyn's world was one in which the spirit of religious tolerance had only begun to stir. Thank you to the publishing committee for an excellent start for Theophilus Press. Also, thank you, Josiah, for sharing that delightful clip of your daughter. Josiah tells me that, quote, Evelyn loves Heidi and always says her name with much enthusiasm and twinkles in her eyes. Well, I heard the twinkle, and if it's all right, I'm going to have Evelyn help me wrap this episode up. The first conference is done, and now the work begins for next year. Thank you, Heidi, for stopping by during your mom's interview. And thank you, Stacey, for your infectious joy and humble giving spirit. May God bless you in your truth pursuits. I hope this podcast serves you well. Yes.